بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So the last time I was here on Friday Night Lights, we did it was about the techniques or how to change minds and change behavior, and a recap of all the techniques and pointers that we mentioned last time. The first thing we said, if you're trying to change someone's mind, you're trying to change their opinion on whatever topic it is, psychologists say that when the mind is fixed, the body is fixed. And one of the ways to get the mind to change is to actually physically get them to move from one place to another. If you've been standing and arguing, get them to sit down, and that breaks that lock, like how their mind is fixed and it's locked. One way to break that, and then we mentioned the hadith even mentions the same thing about anger. You know, if you're standing, sit. If you're sitting, lie down, and so on and so forth. So that was the first thing. The second was what we called reciprocal persuasion, where you allow someone to change your mind. This is honestly now, not deceptively. You allow someone to change your mind on an issue. Like if you're having a discussion with somebody, it's rare that they're 100% wrong. They might have a few good points. And if they're reasonable and they don't, like it's not a compromise as far as what you're arguing about, your values, whatever your beliefs, then accept that point and let them know. And they will subconsciously, because you allow them to persuade you on an issue, they will subconsciously reciprocate and allow you to convince them on an issue as well. And I give you that example of the guy who believed in aliens, and there was an example of how that technique works. Then we said, generally, always start with things that you have in common. They say if there are 99 differences between you and someone else, start with the one thing that you have in common. Don't start with the 99 differences. And I also shared some stories related to that and how that works, and even a verse of the Quran that mentions talking to the people of the book and mentioning the commonalities first, not the differences. The fourth technique we discussed is start with concepts or questions that will get you a yes. We said this is used by prosecutors, it's used by salespeople, all the time. Car salesmen use it, and it's applicable and used in many. And we give the example of the boy who didn't want to go to Quran school or Hifz or class, and his father starts by asking a question, giving a yes and a yes and a yes, and then you get to your point. And this is the same technique that was used by Umar ibn al-Khattab after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. He asked the Prophet ﷺ an obvious yes question. He asked it to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. So this is a technique, and you start by concepts that you agree upon that will get you a yes, and then you can move on from there. Then we mentioned the fifth technique, using favors. Favors are insanely powerful, insanely powerful. And I give you we actually went through a lot of examples. We used the Franklin effect, as it is known also. And if you have the example with the big sign on the front lawn, and how first they ask them for a small favor, then they ask for a big favor. Or you just ask for something, but you ask for it as a favor. And I give you the example of your coworker refuses to read your pamphlet or booklet about Islam. Why? Because I already have the truth, and I don't need to read your booklet. Okay, I know you have the truth. I'm not asking you to read it because you're searching for the truth. I'm just asking you as a favor to me, would you do that? And now everything changed. Now, out of the kindness of their heart, they're doing this favor to you. That in their mind, they have the upper hand. But in reality, what happened? You won. You got them to read the book or the pamphlet or whatever. So using favors is very, very powerful. And if, let's say, somebody hates you at work, at the community, you want them to start liking you, the Franklin effect. Go and ask them for a favor. And they will do it. First, because, the favor puts you at the upper hand. I'm doing something for you out of the kindness of my heart. But then what happens is, after a while, he'll convince himself, like, why would I do a favor to someone I don't like? I know why. Because I like them. And it's very, very powerful. And I gave a lot of examples last time. The sixth technique we mentioned was, or the idea that people they have a need for consistency and for order. And when someone has an opinion of you, you will jump through hoops to make to keep that opinion that they have of you, to keep it consistent. And we give the example of the boy who cleaned his room, and the uncle saw it, and he had this opinion of him that he's so neat and organized. When he came to visit next year, what did the boy do? He organized his room again just to keep consistent with that image that he has of them. And it's actually very strong. Like if somebody thinks you're smart, like if someone's blown away by you, like you're one of the smartest people I've ever met. You don't ever want to say something dumb in front of them because you want to remain consistent with what they think of you, you know? There was this, I don't know. There was a funny story to share. Should I share it? Thank you so much. So, I was at a barbecue, and there was this guy, the grill master, the guy who was flipping the burgers and stuff. I noticed his forearms were huge like this. And the forearm is one of the hardest muscles in the upper body to develop. So a huge forearm. So, and he's just flipping burgers by himself. I've never seen him before in my life. So I came to him and I said, are you a bodybuilder or are you in construction? Because construction, your forearm gets big. Bodybuilding, your forearm gets big. So he didn't even answer me. He stopped everything he was doing. There was a football game going on. He stopped the football game. He gathered everybody. And everyone wanted to know what's going on. He said, this is one of the smartest guys I've ever met. Why? Because the truth is, bodybuilders, they love when you acknowledge and recognize that they're bodybuilders. Yes, that's just the truth, right? I said that in a lecture one time, and at the end of a lecture, a guy came to me like this. He said, Shaykh, you said we like to get acknowledged. We don't like to. I was like, what are you doing right now? Anyways, so he said, this is, basically he said, tell them what you asked me. So I asked him if he's a bodybuilder or in construction, because his forearms were large, and there was one or two areas, and he goes, see how smart this guy is? Then in front of everybody, he says, and here's your answer. And he put his hand out. And he shook my hand. That's the answer. And I didn't understand what he was doing. And I'm trying to, he thinks I'm smart. So I have to remain smart. So I'm like, he's like, huh? Huh? I'm like, So, and then he left. He went back to his burgers. The guys went back to their football game. And I was standing alone. And the wind blew and the tumbleweed came. And I just stood there in the desert by myself. And then finally it hit me. If I was smart, I would have got it right away. I got it later. Who knows what he was trying to do? How is the answer if he's a bodybuilder or in construction? By shaking my hand. Huh? Yes. So if he was in construction, he would have rough, calloused hands. But bodybuilders, they use gloves and stuff. They don't have calloused hands. It's not the 80s anymore, right? Huh? So I didn't get it at the moment. I got it like a few seconds later. But the point of the story is that it hurt me to not be able to be I've never seen him again in my life. So like I could have said, I don't care what he thinks of me. I'm never going to see him again. But the need for, like, the fact that I want to remain consistent with what he thinks of me. And so if I'm at a gathering next time and I see him there, I'll suddenly be smart. Like, yes, I consider I'll just be smart again. I'll fake it. All right. So we mentioned remaining consistent. Then we talked about cognitive dissonance, if you remember. That is the discomfort you feel when you have either two conflicting beliefs or your action goes against your belief. All right? So someone genuinely believes smoking cigarettes is haram, but they smoke. That will make them feel guilty. That's the cognitive dissonance. So human beings don't like to live uncomfortable, so they do things here to make themselves feel okay about things. And to remove the dissonance, you have two options. One, to change the belief, or two, change the action. So the smoker who feels guilty for smoking because he knows it's haram, he can change the action to feel better, quit smoking, or change the belief. That's why every smoker tells you it's makruh, it's not haram, because makruh makes it feel better. I'm just not doing haram, it's makruh. You know what they used to say, right? إن كان مكروه أدينا بنشرب وإن كان حرام أدينا بنحرقه. It's a great Egyptian thing. You wouldn't understand it, but the point is that so we spoke about cognitive dissonance, and then we said the last example we gave that night, we said allow people to set their own goals and objectives, and it's a very powerful technique, and I explained where I got it from the professor who teaches research methods. But then I showed you how we use that technique with the youth who were playing basketball in the parking lot of the masjid, but they wouldn't stop in time. But we got them to decide, this is how you're going to get yourself to stop. Versus if we just punish them and take the ball away or whatever, they just come up with another ball or go play somewhere else. We wanted them to come up with a solution. And research says that, or studies have shown that when people set their own goals and their own objectives, or even their own punishments, they will make a greater effort to meet these goals and objectives, as opposed to when you just present them with it. And then we use the same, and remember the whole point of what we were saying was that these are known as psychological tools or psychological techniques, right? And a tool can be used in a myriad of ways. So you can use it in many different ways. And we were saying that in this example, the professor mentioned it to get the students to do the schoolwork for the semester. But we used it with the youth playing basketball. And then remember the story with the woman who came crying because her husband doesn't help her around the house. I said, okay, make a list, let him set his own chores. And then 2 months later she came, big smile on her face, he's still doing the work that he's supposed to be doing. So that was allowing people to set their own goals. That was like the last technique. There are some other things we did mention. I'm just mentioning them for what it's worth. We did mention that some of the things we mentioned were related to sales, and sales is related to convincing, sales is related to da'wah, sales has psychology in it, you know, and very good salespeople, they know psychology, even if they don't know that they know psychology, but they have it, you know. I don't know if I said this, but let's say a really sharp salesperson, if they recognize that you're an introvert, they will tell you, did I talk about this? They will tell you how you will feel when you drive the car, how you will feel when you own this car, because you're an introvert. If you're extroverted, they will tell you how people are going to react when they see you, how your neighbors are going to look out their window when they see the car parked in front of your driveway today, and how people are going to want to talk to you. But they'll sell you based on your personality type. That's psychology. And I used to go to the dealerships and they would misdiagnose, for lack of a better term. Like I would go and they would think I'm an extrovert. And I'm actually not extroverted at all. And I'm not introverted, I'm very introverted, right? But you push yourself and people think, oh, he's an extrovert, he loves people. I don't hate people. Introverts don't hate people. You understand? But basically, I would go to these dealerships and then the dealer would say, you know what, when you buy this car, everybody's going to want to talk to you. Girls are going to want to talk to you. I'm like, what? I don't want this car. I just want to get to work and come back. I don't want to talk to anybody, you know? So like they got it wrong, and the sales pitch was a huge turnoff. So we did say that in that world of sales and so forth, they say that the number 6 is the magic number. If you ask someone for something 6 times, you ask someone for their business or for a sale 6 times, and that doesn't mean repeating it like a robot 6 times in a row. Yeah, would you like to buy? Would you like to buy? Would you like to buy? Would you like? That they're gonna say you're crazy and walk away. But you rehash, right? It's sales stuff. But basically, you rehash, you highlight a different aspect of the product, and then you present one more time. Then you show them another functional aspect of it, and then you present one more time. By the 6th time, you greatly increase your chances of getting a yes 6 times. I'm just mentioning that we mentioned that last time. And then we also mentioned that if you're having a discussion with someone, because the shortcut to changing someone's behavior, the shortcut to changing someone's mind is to understand them as fast as possible. That's the shortcut. The faster you can understand the person, the sooner you'll know what kind of arguments to present, what kind of arguments to not present, and how to tackle this whatever the challenge is, the issue, how to convince them, whatever it is. But you have to, and this is the same in da'wah as well. We always talk about understanding the person you're talking to. Don't just assume and start just going off of your script, but understand their exact belief system, their sticking points. And you can find that out by asking them the right questions, by listening carefully to what they're saying. Listening is key. And most people don't listen. That's the biggest problem we have. We don't listen. You know, they say you have 2 ears and 1 mouth because listening is twice as hard as talking. Most people just want to talk. And you can notice when you're talking to someone and they're not listening to you. You can notice that. Like sometimes people will come and ask me a question. Yeah, they'll stop me after the lecture, whatever. Ask me a question. I start answering it. They're not listening. And I can tell they're not listening. I could say anything crazy in the middle of the sentence. They won't even notice. And after that, boil the chicken, but with the feathers on. And they'll be like, yes, Jazakallah Khayr, Shaykh. Nobody listens. Pay attention. Just listen. It's the shortcut. Listening to people is a shortcut. You don't listen, you're gonna go the hard route, the long route. So when somebody keeps repeating a phrase to you during a discussion, you say, you refute it, you explain it, they say the same phrase. You refute, you explain, they say the same thing. What they're really telling you subconsciously is, I don't think you heard me. So how can you let them know that you heard them? Rephrase that sentence and say it back to them. Then they'll finally be satisfied that, okay, they have heard what I'm saying. And I gave you an example of that last time. So these were all just a recap of the different techniques and basically things that we covered the last time. Today we have a whole set of new different tools and techniques to change people and behavior. We said, be creative. You can apply the tools that I'm going to talk about today. You can apply them in completely different scenarios. Completely. And I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying some of these techniques you can apply to human beings and to animals as well. Like, it's just up to you where you can apply these techniques. So, the first one is think highly of the individual and respect their intelligence. You're trying to, get a friend of yours to change or to change their behavior, or your child. Let them know that you think highly of them. And that could be excuse me. That could be by starting with some kind of praise, or how well you think of them, or how highly you think of them. Or it could be just speaking to them in that tone without verbalizing, I think highly of you. And there's a story, I love this story. A lot of psychology books mention this story. Basically, it was this teacher. She had just graduated. She's going to become a teacher. And she's going to change the world one brilliant mind at a time, all that good stuff. So she's just coming out of school hopeful and all that. And she was hired by this school. They had this grade, this one class where they put the worst students. Just over the years, they just accumulated the worst students in this class. They're always failing and they don't do their homework. They don't attend. It's just a disaster. So none of the teachers in that school want to deal with that classroom because they're uninspiring. Nobody wants to deal with that class. See, she doesn't know. She's a newcomer. So first day of school, the principal tells her that this is going to be your class. Then he hands her the names of each student. And next to the name of each student is a 3-digit number. And then she goes off to change the world. And in a couple of months, all these students, the worst class in the school's history, they all have straight A's. They all do their homework. Their attendance is perfect. Their participation in class, complete turnaround. And this is a newcomer, this teacher. This is her first time teaching. So the principal actually called her into his office. And he tells her, I gave you the worst class in the school. Failing class. How did you turn them around so much? She said, I didn't do anything. I just treated them based on their IQ level. He said, how would you even know their IQ level? She said that the paper you gave me at the beginning of the year that had the IQ level for each student, he said those were the locker numbers. But she would see the name and see 120, 135, 140. This person is brilliant. What's amazing, and this is the real part here, is that she didn't say, your IQ is 140. He would have said, how do you know? I've never taken an IQ test and all that. She never said that. She just spoke to them like they were intelligent. And one of my favorite studies, it's not a very halal study, okay, so we're not going to replicate it, but it's powerful nonetheless. Basically, the study proves that the way you speak to someone, even if it's like these subconscious hints, the other person picks up on them. So in this study, they gave some men pictures of women and phone numbers. And they told them for the study, call them and have a conversation with them. So they gave pictures, according to them, of beautiful women to these. Well, they gave a beautiful picture of a woman, but it wasn't the woman he was calling. So, and then they gave others non-beautiful pictures. That's all. Everyone's beautiful, right? Everybody's beautiful. So, but that's the study. Don't get mad at me. I wasn't part of it. But they gave some pictures of, stereotypical attractive people, basically, half starving and skinny and whatever. Like, that's beautiful. And then they gave normal pictures of other, but they were not representative of the actual people they were calling. And then they interviewed the ladies after the phone call. The ones who thought they were speaking to a beautiful woman, they never said, "You're a beautiful woman." But it was there in their tone, and it was there subconsciously, and the other woman picked up on it. And they rated the conversation positively. Whereas over here, they didn't rate anything positively. But so what I'm trying to say is that the teacher didn't blatantly say your IQ is high, but she just treated them like they were smart. And what happened? Just like that uncle story with the kid cleaning the room. They lived up to the expectation. They lived up to the expectation. If somebody talks to you like you're smart, you start to act smart. It just happens. It's just how people are. Someone really thinks highly of you. If I grab one of the youth in the masjid and say, "You know what, all these youth, they're bad behavior, bad mouthing, but you're the best one in this masjid." Even if he's not, every time he's going to act like he's the best one. So, think highly of the individual, respect their intelligence. And that's exactly, look at this. The Battle of Badr, the Prophet ﷺ advanced the army a little bit. Then he examined the soldiers, the ranks, and he took the little kids out of the army. The real question is, why were the little kids in the army? Because they lived in a society that made them feel capable, that made them feel like men. In Islam, we don't have the concept of kid or kids. And you see a 12-year-old, "Hey kid, come here." There's no such thing like that. The little guys, yeah, these are kids. But then the 11-year-old, the 9-year-old, the 10-year-old, that's called a young man. So people who deal with youth and they know what they're doing, they never say, "Hey kid." They say, "Young man, come over here. Young woman, come here." Because that's what they are in Islam. They're young men and they're young women. And that sets up a better expectation than when I call someone a kid. I remember I was teaching these students one time, and one of them, he's like my height, and he said, "I'm just a kid," and he pulled it out, "Kid." I was so mad at him. What kind of a man pulls a sentence like that? Stretches a word like that. The point is that, yeah, because that's what you're told, but you're a young man until you're not just a... So the Prophet ﷺ, it took 11 and 12-year-olds out of the army. But they felt they were capable. Because they lived in a community where they were trusted and they felt they could do things. And that's why Usama ibn Zayd, when he was put in charge of an army, he was 17 or 18 years old. And today, if you put a 17-year-old in charge of just $500 in the car, he's going to blow it. But it's not really his fault. It's because we told him, "You're a kid and you won't be a man till you're magically 18 and all this other stuff." And there are like a lot of examples and stories here, but basically, when you treat people like they're mature, like they're capable, they're intelligent, they live up to the expectation. And that's just time and time again, true and tested. Just try it. So, and there are many other examples, like, a lot of times you travel and you see this little kid overseas and he's just like any adult, Some of you have been to bazaars where there's like a 7-year-old boy selling you the tomatoes. and you just test him to see if you give him the wrong change, what he'll do. You ever done that? I used to do that just for fun, to see how awake and aware these kids are. You know, I'll buy lemons from a little boy and be like, okay, how about you give me 5 for that much? Immediately he's like, what? No, you think I'm dumb? Like, they're awake, they're aware, they know what's going on, because they lived up to the expectation that was presented to them, that you're capable of opening up a little grocery, not store, but like mat at the stand at the bazaar, and you can sell and make money, and nobody will trick you because you're smart. That's how it is. Okay, then you go to other parts of the world, and let's not leave it unmentioned. Yeah. Anyways, طيب. So that was the first technique. It's think highly of the individual, respect their intelligence, speak to them in that way, let them know. You can directly let them know that you think that way of them, think highly of them, and they will live up to that expectation. They want to remain consistent with the image that you have of them. Next technique, readjusting goals. If you want to change someone's behavior, behaviors are linked to goals. Behaviors are linked to goals. So I'll give you a true example. I had this relative, a young boy, and he wanted to become a professional soccer player. So what do you think his actions will be? Actions are linked to goals. You want to become a professional soccer player, what do you think your actions will be? Practice, playing soccer, watching soccer, reading about soccer, talking about soccer. Because actions are linked to goals. And you want to become an architect, you're going to study architecture. You're not going to study the heart, right? So actions are linked to goals. So his father wanted him to become a businessman. And he would always tell him, stop playing soccer. Stop watching soccer. Come do business. Will you think it would work? It's not going to work. But the shortcut would be to readjust the goals. And then you don't have to nag them about the actions. If you can readjust the goals, and I don't mean this in a cruel way, I don't mean crushing people's dreams and all that stuff. But if you can readjust their goals, their actions will naturally change. Imam Malik rahimahullah is the perfect example of this. Imam Malik rahimahullah, when he was a young boy, what did he want to become? He wanted to grow up to become a singer, right? So if you want to become a singer, what do? You hang out with singers, you sing in the shower, you write poetry, you learn an instrument, you're in that world. His mother, rahimahullah, was a wise woman. She didn't try to get him to change his goals by nagging the actions. Don't sing. Don't hang out with those people. Stay at home. Read Quran. You're not going to read Quran. If your goal is to become a hafiz, your actions will be reciting Quran. If your goal is to become a singer, you're not going to read Quran. Actions are linked to goals. She was a wise woman. She readjusted his goals. So she made him, or got him to want to become a scholar. And she never once had to tell him, don't sing, don't play an instrument, don't do that. He immediately, the minute he changed his mind and wanted to become a great scholar, he changed his actions by himself. That's the smart way to do it. Don't nag someone about what they're doing. If you can readjust the actions, she made him want to become a scholar. And she did some amazing things. She actually would dress him up like a young scholar. You know? Like I would always tell people, like when Jum'ah is over, take your little son or daughter, put them up there. They won't get in trouble. Bring them up there and tell them, Yalla, you're the Shaykh, you're the Imam, you give the khutbah, talk to the people, instruct. Yeah? Because she made him love the profession, just like today we make our children love certain professions. Like you want our child to become a doctor, we buy them that kit from the dollar store that has the stethoscope and it has a scalpel and a little blood pressure machine, and they go around checking your blood pressure and listening to your heart. We make them fall in love with being a doctor. You want your son to become a cop, you buy him that kit, that has the plastic handcuffs and the club and the badge, and they go around hitting black people and stuff. The point is that we're just kidding. Right. So the point is that she made him love she dressed him up like a young sheikh. And anyways, great, she did it right. It was a perfect example of readjusting the goals, and then the actions will naturally change. So sometimes you want people's behavior to change, adjust their goals, tweak their goals, and you don't even have to have the discussion about the actions. Okay. طيب. So that way, any questions about these two techniques so far, or clarifications, any, or addition? You want to add something? All right. Yes. Okay. And the beautiful, see, the sister saying, Islamically, what should our goals be? And other than getting to Jannah and stuff like that, I mean, the beautiful thing is that Islam didn't tell you this is what you should, as a profession, do in life, right? But no matter what your profession, part of you is always wanting, willing, and able to assist and better the community and better the ummah and do something to better people's lives. Like if you're a doctor, you still want to do that. If you're an engineer, you want to do that. You're a businessman, you're a stockbroker. On one side of your mind, you always want to do something to help your community. So as long as those core values are there, Islam didn't tell you or dictate what your job, profession, goals in life should be. As long as you have those there. Wallahu a'lam. But basically, it left it open. Yeah. Okay, like, so what stage of spirituality should you aspire to? Like, I mean, the Prophet ﷺ gave us the high stages, like the high levels, right? And he mentioned al-ihsan, which is the highest level of iman. And then he mentions it's as if it's when you worship Allah as if you can see Him. Then lower than that you remember all the time that He sees you. And basically, I guess the bottom line is if you follow the Prophet ﷺ, that's you will reach wherever you need to go. You know, there's if you look at I don't know if someone's ever done this, but basically, if you take a lecture where it's a day in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, that he prayed Qiyam, then prayed Fajr, then made dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jalla until it was time for the duha, then he prayed the rak'at, then he just go through all the fasting and the extra rak'at that he prayed and all the istighfar that he did and all the dhikr that he did and the Quran and all that, just one day. If you lived your day like that, you would have no time for bid'ah, no time for anything. So really, no exaggeration, the formula of the Prophet ﷺ, it'll get you where you need to be. It's just how committed are you to it. Wallahu ta'ala. Okay, we're on the third one. Make them, you're trying to get someone to change either their view or change their actions, their lifestyle. But one of the techniques as you're talking to them is that you get them to feel that the problem is easy to fix and the change is easy to achieve. And imagine you go to a doctor with a problem and then the doctor starts saying, oh my God, okay, cancel all my appointments and give me a bucket of hot water and 4 boiled eggs. You're like, what's going on? And he's making it sound like this is a calamity. Versus the doctor just says, yeah, this is very, very common cases. It's just a 5-minute procedure and we'll send you on your way home. How do you feel? So children do this all the time. Or maybe we do it to children. When a child falls, those of you who are parents, you know, when your child falls, they don't decide to cry right away. What do? They look at you. And based on your expression, they decide if they got hurt and it was painful or if it wasn't painful. So a lot of times the child falls, then they look at you and you're like, ah. That's why when kids fall, I'm so mean to them. Kids fall, did you break the ground? It's okay, get up, let's go. And the kid just gets up and follows me, you know? But when you make a big deal, it becomes a big deal. And sometimes problems are like that. And you let someone know, if someone comes to you with a problem, you let them know, look, it's not uncommon, and it can be remedied it's not very difficult. Inshallah, we can work together and get it done. They feel they can overcome this obstacle. Whereas if you make it sound insurmountable, it's going to be a daunting task for them, and perhaps they might even quit or get too scared to even try. So someone comes to you with a problem, or you want someone to make a change in life, let them know that it's doable, it's been done, it's easy to achieve, it just needs a little bit of this or that from you. Just the same way when the child falls, they decide based on your reaction, you know. Okay. So there's starting with a simple change, and then you get that person to go in the right direction. So they call this, sometimes this is called momentum. Some books refer to it as the snowball effect. And now in neuroscience, as it relates to behavior, they refer to certain habits as keystone habits. For those of you who have read The Power of Habit, right? Amazing book. So keystone habits, it's one thing that causes a snowball effect and gets you to change other habits. Exercise is actually known to be one of the keystone habits. I didn't ask you to change your diet. I just asked you to exercise. And based on that, you start changing your diet and eating better and showing up to work on time. And it's a keystone habit. It's amazing. So, but there are, let's say, 12 things that a person has wrong in their life, and they need to change all 12. So which one do I get them to start with? Which one do I suggest? So there's sometimes, like, let's say, you have to use your judgment. If it's, let's say, they have a number of things they do in their life that are wrong, and one of them is they don't pray, I know which one to start with now, the most important. But I'm talking about regular habits, for example. They have 12 bad habits, they need to break all of them, or leave all of them. So which one do I start with? Psychologists say you start with the simple one, because what it does, it creates momentum. So a simple change, and that simple change, that number one, can get me to number two more easily, because I already did the first one. And it creates, again, keystone habit, and it gets you moving in the right direction. So sometimes psychologists suggest that if you have a lot of things you need to change, or you're trying to help someone change, pick the easiest one, the simplest one, and it will create momentum. It'll get them moving in the right direction. And it could be something ridiculous. Like, I know people that when they're about, okay, I'm going to change how I live, I'm going to change my sleeping habits, I'm going to change my diet, I'm going to start exercising, I'm going to do all this. You know, one of the things that gets them started in that direction, it's simple, and for everyone it's different. They just rearrange their bedroom. That was the old me with the bed against this wall. The new me, the bed's on. It means nothing. But just rearranging their bedroom is, in their mind, a shift. Signifies a shift in their mind. So start with a simple change. Get it to use it to get the person moving in the right direction. They also say don't overwhelm. Like, don't give people need to change 12. Someone needs to change 12 things. Don't give them 4 to go home with. Start with 1, and just go gradually. So beware of overwhelming people with things. And then also, psychologists say if you find a change that will make them feel good, that will be more attainable as opposed to one that doesn't make them feel any better. But a change that makes you feel good is a good change that will get you to move on to other things. Just as a side note, they mentioned that, again, psychologists mentioned that giving up what do they say? It's easier to give up a bad habit than to acquire a good habit. Did you hear that before? Yeah? So they tell you, like, if you have, like, you want to attain some new good habits and you want to drop some bad habits, it's easier to leave a bad habit than to attain and to develop a new good one. So, pick your battles at that point. Okay. طيب. Next one. That one we covered. So how about this one? When someone makes a positive change, and resolutions don't last a lot of times, and most people will decide they're going to quit this or change that, and then they fall back into, because we're creatures of habit, so they fall back into their old habits. So one of the ways to get them to remain upon that change is to be very enthusiastic about the change they've made. And I'll tell you a true story. We used to work at this company, and it was all Muslims, and this was in Virginia. And there was one brother who smoked, and he wasn't one of those smokers. He knew it was haram. So he would say, you know, I'm going to quit one day, inshallah. And I know, you don't. Every time, but there was one brother who always gave him advice and always encouraged him, and always told him, you know what, you know, inshallah, you're going to quit soon, and you can do it, and all that stuff. So then one day the guy comes to work, he looks all frazzled, and he says, I quit smoking today. So, you know, most people are like, yeah, that's nice. But that brother who was always encouraging him, oh, he went overboard with the enthusiasm. He came to him and he said, you quit smoking? Allahu Akbar. And he hugged him. And, you know, he gave him a hug and he said, Ya akhi, you know, may Allah reward you. And you know, when you give up something for the sake of Allah, Allah will reward you with something better, replace you with something better. And then he went around to everyone's desk and told them, so-and-so quit smoking, go and congratulate him. So this guy's sitting at his cubicle, suddenly the whole office is at his desk. We heard you quit smoking, congratulations brother. The enthusiasm was crazy. Then during lunch, I used to, like I told you, it was a true story, I was working there. Then during lunch, the guy ran to the store, brought a cake, I believe it was a cake, came back and he gave it to him, came to his desk like, this is for you. This is because you quit smoking. And inshallah, may Allah accept from you. And you know, you give something up, Allah will replace you with something better. Inshallah, soon something great's going to happen. And now, do you think this guy, next day, can just come and just light up? Allah will lynch him if that. Too late. But the enthusiasm was contagious, and also, which is a slightly different technique, when you go public, it's harder to go back. If you quit between you and yourself, you can just say, I'll start tomorrow. But if you quit and you let everyone know, and then if everyone's excited like that, it's nearly, he's better go to another state to smoke a cigarette. It's so, enthusiasm is contagious, right? It transfers from person to person. Sometimes, another technique, sometimes you can just push someone into the spotlight and it will force them to change. Again, this is a true story. This was, so that, what does that mean? 9:30, what? Oh, 20 minutes, that one? Okay, fantastic. Naam? Okay, they're done in 7 and 20 to the Salah. Jameel. Hello. So, you know how Muslim student associations, they usually have like a faculty advisor, someone from the school, a professor or an instructor. So this faculty advisor, she happened to be Muslim, and she was telling me that the MSA, there was a time period when the MSA was completely dead. So she said, I had to do something to revive it and have the Jum'ah Salah, but there was no officers, there was nobody. So she said, I just went out. I knew there was just one Arab guy, and he would always just hang around campus with his girlfriend. Yeah, they're just going, he buys her a cappuccino, مش عارف, he buys her. Just walking around with this girl the whole time. I'm in no fayda. So she says, I went up to him and I said, listen, we don't have anyone for the Muslim Student Association to set up Jum'ah and all that stuff. You're the new MSA president. He said, me? There's no. She said, you're the new MSA president. He said, I don't even pray. She said, you're the new MSA president. He said, I've got Jessica and you're the new MSA president. And she just forced him into it. What do you think he did? Yeah, he straightened up. It's hard for them to announce Jum'ah with Jessica next to him. So he broke up with her. And he started praying. And he started to organize the students. And so sometimes, but you have to be careful with this. Like you don't bring a guy who is like drunk and high on crack and make him the imam, yani. You don't go to extremes. But sometimes you can push someone into the spotlight or push them into the leadership position. And oftentimes they could or might live up to that expectation. So sometimes, yeah, like even with your child, you could do that. You give them a responsibility, or you give them something a little beyond what you usually give them. You tell them, you know what, I believe, I know you can do this. I need you to take care of this issue, and and they'll do it. But a lot of times, like we said earlier, the reason they won't do it is, you tell them that, like one guy, I witnessed this lecture one time, and the speaker said something, it was to the youth, and he said something very powerful to them. He said, your biggest problem is adults. They don't think you're capable. They keep telling you you're kids. They keep telling you can't do things. I have a friend of mine from Medina. He's from Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara. He says, when my father, he's talking to me, he's saying when his father was 14 years old, his parents would give him the keys to the truck and put merchandise on the back of the truck. And then he would drive for 2 days across the desert to another city, drop the merchandise, purchase new merchandise, and then, so as not to come back empty-handed, he had 3 seats empty. He would charge grown-up adults a fee to take him to the next city. 14. Are the 14-year-olds we have today capable of doing that? Are they themselves capable? The answer is yes, they are. But would they be capable now? No. Why? Because we tell them, you're a little baby, you can't do anything, and you're not 18 yet, and once you magically blow the candles on your 18th birthday, you'll sprout hair and your voice will be deep, and you're like, yes, Father. Yeah. So it's just a mental block that we put on them, Anyways, should I start another one, or we have time before the adhan? 3 minutes before the adhan? Okay, let's start this one. Sometimes you can get someone to change their behavior by asking them to assist someone with a similar problem, with a problem similar to theirs. For example, and this actually happened. This was in Virginia. There was this boy. He was in the Quran Tahfidh program and everything. But one day his mom came and complained of him. He hits his older sister. Like he hits her, right? But he's a good kid. He prays and he comes to the Quran school and all that. But he hits his sister. And the mother said, can you talk to him so he would stop hitting his sister? So obviously you could sit him down and embarrass him like that. And one of the most important things is to allow people to save face. To not embarrass people, or to come at them directly with that which you know will embarrass them. And that's one of the beautiful, beautiful descriptions of the Prophet ﷺ. They said that the Prophet ﷺ would never come to you with that which you hate. Allah, it's beautiful. That's why even when he came to ask Aisha radiallahu anha about the rumors and stuff, he said, أَمَّا بَعْدُ يَا عَائِشَةَ فَقَدْ بَلَغَنِي عَنْكِ كَذَا وَكَذَا. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam actually said, كَذَا وَكَذَا means such and such. He said, I heard such and such about you. He didn't say the thing because he knows that there's nothing more hated to his wife than to hear those words, those accusatory words from her husband's lips. You understand? So they said from the manners of the Prophet ﷺ is that he never came to you with that which you hate. Today we have people who are experts at coming at you with that which you hate. They know you don't want to hear that, but they come to you, but it's with a hug. So they hug you to console you, but then as you're hugged, they take the knife out and put it nice and deep. Yani, let's give an example, and then after this example, we'll... So, a sister got divorced, or a brother got fired. The number one word they don't want to hear in the world is fired. Sah? I mean, let go is easier, but fired is painful. And then, divorce is painful. But you already hate that sister, and you're happy that she got divorced. But you don't want to tell her that. You want to come as if you're consoling her. It's easy. So just tilt your head to the side like this, bring your shoulders forward, and then close your eyes halfway like this. See how concerned I look? You see? But if you come like this, it's not concerned. But this is so concerned. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. We heard the news that you got divorced. See that? Fakery. Oh, I care about you, but all I want to do is throw that word divorced in your face. You hate that brother, and he got fired from a good job. And you come and you're like, oh, we're so sorry to hear the news. We heard you got fired. These things, Allah Azza wa Jal knows. Allah Azza wa Jal knows. Never do stuff like that. We'll end here. We'll stop here for the adhan, inshallah. Initially we started by talking about the boy who hits his sister. And we said one way is to sit down and, ya akhi taqillah, how could you hit your sister? But then that would just embarrass him, and especially you're the Quran teacher, and now he knows that you know. It's very embarrassing, and he's going to go to his mom, I hate you, mom, and I hate this family. You know, that stuff that happens to them. The point is this, allowing them to save face is nice. So this is a technique. Now, this is not like it's going to work, but this is just, it could work. That's what you do. You try different things, right? So, what are we talking about? We're asking them to assist with a problem similar to theirs, without acknowledging or addressing their problem. So, I would sit this young man down, okay, and we would say this, look, I need your help with something. There's a young man, he's about your age, or he's in your age group, and he's a good kid and everything, but he hits his sister. And because he's about your age, I wanted you to tell me what I can say to him that will get him to stop doing that. Because obviously that's incorrect behavior. So help me with what to say to him. What do you think I should say to him? Now what's happening? He's assisting an imaginary person with the exact same problem that he has. Now what happens as he's telling me things like, he's going to tell me something like, tell him that the Prophet ﷺ said that he is not from amongst us who does not respect the elderly and have mercy on those who are young. And then tell him that Islam, one of the most important things in Islam, your manners and how you behave. And the Prophet ﷺ said the Muslim is the one whom people are safe from their tongue and their hands, or their hands on their tongue. As he's giving me these hadith and these pieces of advice, what's happening to him? Yes, we said human beings have a need for order and they have a need for consistency. If you do something that makes you feel like a hypocrite, you feel bad. Nobody feels good being hypocritical. So he will feel bad as he's giving this righteous advice and giving all these ayat and hadith and corrections for something that he himself does. There's a very strong chance that strong guilt can get him to stop that behavior. And of course, that was based on a true story. So that's the technique. Ask them to advise or assist someone with a problem similar to theirs. And they'll feel like hypocrites as they're telling you what to tell this other person. Why didn't I change myself? There's some other techniques. I want to end with two, but I just thought of this one also. And it's like, for example, a woman just got divorced, and she just got divorced, for example, and she's now going to start to spiral into depression, and she's concerned about her problems and this. You know what? Ask her to drop a box off to a needy family, and a lot is going to happen. One is that she's going to feel trusted, that you entrusted her with this. Two, she feels like she has a chance to contribute, and that will make her feel better. Three, it will take her concerns off of her own problems when she sees real problems of someone else, hunger, children not having adequate living conditions, things like that. Yani, any woman with personal problems, like let's say, take her to Gaza, for example. She's not going to come back and complain about her latte or her hairdresser was late. None of that stuff. And not to be stereotypical yet. Some people just watching every word you say. And then, you said that's all we care about is latte and hairdresser. No, that's not what I said. There are many other things women care about. It's not just lattes and hairdresser. But some people like problems. But they like other things. They watch movies on Netflix. Kidding. All useless things, examples. Huh? Al-Muhim, I want to close with, and there's some other techniques. There's a technique that I don't recommend. So I've been struggling, should I say it or not? Because I don't recommend it. Because if you don't use it right, it can backfire badly. Then you're back to beyond where you started from, like the other way. Khalas, we'll skip it. So I want to end with a story. Going back to favors. I know we spoke about favors and I used a lot of examples, but I really like this example. So any 80s people in here? In the 80s? No? No 80s folks? In the 80s, who were popular? They were all over the airports in America. Hare Krishnas. If you watch any old 80s movies, the Hare Krishnas, they will come to you at the airport especially. Who remembers what they used to start with? The opening. They would come to you with a flower. Remember? We would like you to have this flower. Would you care to make a donation? And people gave them like crazy because they felt the need to give back, to reciprocate. I got something from you, I need to give you something back. That's the exact same reason when the salesperson spends a long time with you and they told them it's the wrong size and they went up the ladder and they almost fell grabbing your box and they did a somersault and landed on their feet and then here it is, it's the last one, and then you're like, it's okay, I don't want it. You feel so bad, right? So that's why you feel the need to buy from someone, because they spend a lot of time with you. And there's a way, the psychologists give a technique to get out of that and to get out of the guilt. But basically, you felt the need to reciprocate. So they would ask you to, would like you to have this flower. So I want to end with this story, and it just really shows you the power of favors or reciprocity. So we had this team, this is back in Virginia, we had this team of salespeople. If you look at us wrong, your bank account will decrease by $100. Like we would sell, back then we had the largest Islamic audio library in North America. We had and we were the first group to start editing lectures, and there was not, these lectures with babies crying and the Shaykh coughing for half an hour. We had to clean stuff. It was like we started that stuff. But our salespeople were crazy. If you just look at us wrong, you're buying 5 CDs. This is CDs days, and cassettes as well. Cassettes. So we had all these. This was March 23rd. What's special about March 23rd? Pakistani people know. Nobody here from Pakistan? March 23rd. The National Day. Right? Yeah. So, anyways, March 23rd, and there was a big event at that thing in DC, that long thing. The monument, right? So at the monument, the Washington Monument, we had this event there with some tents and but we had our table, we brought our cassettes, and we brought the craziest salespeople. One of them, we had him in a cage with chains, and then we let him loose when it was time. Okay? So this is what we were selling. And then we'll pray. Cassettes. 1 for $2.50. 2 for $5, or 4 for $10, right? Then we had this table next to us. I'm not going to mention the name of the Shaykh, but he's a famous Shaykh. He had a table next to him. All his stuff was homemade. His lectures were recorded without an audience in his living room, no editing, and his colors were the designs were so ugly, it's like red and green, and it was just horrible, right? And he's just standing there. He has his cassettes there. And then he's just chit-chatting with people the whole day. And at the end of the day, he had more money than we did. And I'm not talking about a little more than us. He had like 3 times more money than we did. And we had these crazy salespeople that had collars around them, muzzles. They were wild. We were selling like crazy. And this guy was chit-chatting the whole day, and he had 3 times more money than we did. How? Okay, our sign was 1 for $2.50, 2 for $5, 4 for $10. His sign said free tapes. Then had a jar that said donations for the da'wah. So what would happen? Someone would take 1 cassette, and even though the sign said free, every single person would ask him, so it's free? Yes. That's all he said all day. So it's free? Yes, it is. Even though the sign said it. So they would take 1 and put 10. They would take 1 and put a 20 because they got something for free. And it's hard to say, oh, so it's free? Thank you. And just walk away. It's hard, right? So you want to reciprocate because you got something. So they would take it and then they would drop 10 and 20. So he was selling 1 for $20, 1 for 10 selling. And we would sell 4 for 10 after, So I wanted to share that story to show you the power of the favor or the power of reciprocity. جزاكم الله خيرا for listening attentively. صلى الله وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.